Wajahat, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, man. How's it going?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in my hometown in the mountains. It's the weather is lovely here. Rest of the Pakistan is boiling, but I'm okay, sitting
So
without the.
where is your hometown then? Whereabouts are we talking?
So my hometown is about 3 hours drive north of Islamabad, the
Yeah.
capital. It's called Mansehra, and it is in the foothills of the Himalayan mountains. It's a very pretty valley with snow-capped peaks all around. And actually, the Karakoram Highway actually moves through my town up into the bigger mountains.
So I was going to touch on that later when we obviously want to pick your brains on lots of rickshaw related adventures and in
Yeah.
particular the Karakoram Highway. Um, so briefly, when we come to Pakistan, will we be going through your valley or does it kind of circumnavigate it or straight through?
No, no, you will be actually going through my hometown, passing through my valley.
Brilliant. Yeah, really look forward to that. And then I guess right now it's coming, well, it's probably summer's already hit in most of Pakistan. So the high pass is already passable then?
Yeah, the passes are passable. There is one main pass, which is between the Karakoram Mountains and the lower mountains. It's called the Babusar Pass, which basically is a shortest way to the town of Gilgit and
Hmm.
beyond the Karakoram Highway, because it saves you about 4 hours if you just keep on going on the main KKH, abbreviation for Karakoram Highway. You go through the Kohistan Indus Gorge, but because the Babusar Pass is open, which is about a 14,000 feet high pass, so you actually go through Kahan Valley and avoid that part of KKH, which is actually being built right now, and it is in terrible condition.
Well, terrible condition is kind of what we are, I guess, somewhat expecting on some of the journey. I mean, this actually coincides with, with what, the 15th of June today, almost exactly a year, a year before we do the first rickshaw adventure. As you know, we were talking about this since even last year and had done a reasonable amount of planning, but just with the overall global travel headache that is still existing,
Yeah.
we've had to push it back. And then because of the route that we are planning, as you know, there's somewhat limitations to just the seasonality of being able to do it, which is why we've had to push it back.
That's right.
Push it back to June next year. Before we go into the details, and I've got lots of things I'd like to talk to you about, and about, especially about your particular rickshaw journey and adventure. But perhaps you could, obviously I know you, but perhaps you could just give a little bit of a background of your advent. I know you're a filmmaker. You've been traveling for ages. Just a little bit of your own background and info, just so the listeners can get a feel.
Yeah. Well, my name is Wajahat Malik, and I live in Pakistan, Islamabad. So I have been in the travel, tourism, and filmmaking industry for the past over 2 decades now. I started off with a show on Pakistan television called Travel Guide of Pakistan. This is back in 1999, and the show was very popular in Pakistan at that time because there were no other channels. There was only Pakistan television, and people had no choice but to watch it. So, I mean, that was a show of its first kind. And in 2 years, while I was presenting the show, I became a well-known figure as a traveler, adventurer in Pakistan. So that got me going. And in 2001, the first Pakistani private channel, Indus Vision, opened up, and they offered me a show. So that was the first time that I produced, directed, and presented a show by the name of Journey. And because since it was the first private channel, everybody wanted to watch it. My show became an instant hit on that channel as well, because in that show, I travel in the mountains. I even went across the Chinese border in the north and went to the towns of Kashgar and, showed them Mustaghata, which is a 7,000, meter high mountain.
Yeah.
Down south we went. So I was traveling in a Jeep doing crazy adventures and people just loved it. This was back in 2001. And since then, I've been in the I've been in the industry. I was never trained as a filmmaker. So while I was doing shows with Pakistan Television, I learned the art of documentary filmmaking, and then I just started on my own. I was lucky because nobody else was doing this kind of work in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So it was very different. It was very new. So I was the only one. And actually, if you think about it, after those 20 years, I'm still the only one who's at it. I mean, there've been people who have come and done some travel shows here and there, but that's about it. I have been actually the one who's carried on the legacy of travel filmmaking, for the past 20 years. So I have done a lot of adventure travel shows for Pakistani channels, for a lot of foreign channels. I've traveled around the world. I climbed mountains. I paraglide. I do all kinds of adventure sports, and that's how I live, man. That's my lifestyle.
Awesome. So a lot of those shows and productions that you were doing, they were taking people on a journey around Pakistan. Then was it like, obviously it sounds like there was a strong theme of like adventure travel within that. I know Pakistan is one of the highlights of Pakistan is adventure travel. But was it a mixture of like just going through rural areas, like taking people on like a cultural journey through like Pakistan? What was the main like catch, or was it just taking like people, on a journey through Pakistan?
I mean, I did all kinds of travel shows. Some were more adventure driven. Some were just travel shows, sights and sounds.
Yeah.
Some were foreign tours. So I've done, like, in the past 20 years, a mix and match of shows which were geared towards adventure and travel. And then I've also done a lot of other documentaries on environment, and I've also covered wars. Back in 2003, I covered the Iraq War for Indus News, which was a subsidiary channel of Indus Vision. And then during the Afghan War, in 2001, 2, 3, it's been going on. I was also working as a fixer coordinator / journalist for different foreign international news companies. But that was only till 2004, and then I didn't like sorry, I didn't like journalism that much because it was just not me. So I kind of quit that, and then kept my focus on video production with a forte in adventure and travel.
And I recently watched one of your latest. I think you've got. Well, I know you've got a little. Whether you call it, I don't know what you call it, a podcast, but like great conversations that you're having with some industry people. And I watched one recently with I think it's Masood Ul Mulk, the president of the Pakistan Association of Tour Operators, and I was really interested to like hear. Well, some of it was in Urdu and some in English, but it was really interesting to hear like the take on, not the take, but both of your perspectives and questioning the current position of like Pakistan tourism. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that in general. I know you were, I know COVID came into that conversation, but just kind of the state of travel, the perception of Pakistan as a destination. What's your take on that currently? We're obviously wanting to promote it as a destination, as a destination that's open for travel, open for adventure travel. That's one of our goals with the trip. But I'm just curious to know your take on it. I mean, COVID aside, because we all know that that's just affected in the whole industry. Some countries more than others, but if we were to take COVID out of it, what's your take on it?
Well, Julian, before 9/11, I'll just give you a bit of history. We were a very popular destination with backpackers, with religious tourists, with general tourists. I'm talking about foreigners.
Yeah.
Domestic tourism at that time was, just a little blip. After 9/11, because of all the the security situation in the country and with the Afghanistan and all that stuff happening, our tourism took a big hit. In terms of it went down rapidly. People were suffering. Foreign tourists stopped coming in, but then slowly, as the situation increased, there was just like ups and downs. But it's been 20 years now. We have not fully recovered yet, because we were labeled as a dangerous destination, and there were travel advisories against Pakistan. But that is all in the past.
Yeah.
Over the years, but the perception, it takes a while for the perception to go away. Now, in the past few years, actually, no, quite a bit of years now, the situation is immensely improved in the country. It is like a very, very safe place to travel now. Especially the northern areas of Pakistan are extremely safe. They were always safe, even when there's, stuff going on in the rest of the country, because there are beautiful people up there. It's cut off from the rest of the country. Foreigners would fly into Islamabad, then go to the north and then fly out. But now overall, the situation in the country has improved immensely. So we have in the past few years seen a lot of foreign tourism, in Pakistan. So things have improved. Security has considerably improved. I mean, I would say now we are one of the safest countries in terms of, there's hardly any street crime in Pakistan. I mean, okay, we got that image because of terrorism, but that kind is gone now completely. But if you look at it, the people of Pakistan have been very hospitable, very curious about foreigners. They always like help them out. Less commercialism, and also because we've been sort of in the past many years, the world does not know much about Pakistan because the foreign tourists stopped coming here. So now people are more eager to entertain foreign tourists. The government is more eager. It has eased visa restrictions. It is facilitating foreign tourists, which is really good, and the infrastructure has improved considerably over the years. I would suggest people who want to come to Pakistan that this is the time before the domestic tourists overrun our valleys and spoil them. So I'm actually quite against the whole idea of mass tourism. And
I was going to say that's what you mean by that. Like, obviously, just a huge influx of people, and then mass tourism overruns the destinations. Yeah.
Dude, domestic tourists have already spoiled many pristine mountain valleys in Pakistan because there is no regulation, and everybody and their aunt has now the money, and because of the road access and the infrastructure, they are heading up into the valleys. They don't have awareness about how to be a responsible tourist. So they litter, and all the infrastructure that comes up to cater to these tourists, there's hardly any waste management. Trees are being cut, rivers are being spoiled. I'm actually quite frustrated. And that's another thing which I'm doing in Pakistan now, that I am trying to promote responsible tourism in the country, trying to make people aware of how to behave when they're in the mountains or in the nature, or even generally in any tourist destination in Pakistan or in the world. So that's another thing that is closer to my heart now. Save nature, the environment from marauding tourists. And that rickshaw journey that I went up to do, was part of that responsible tourism campaign that I did.
Well, I mean, we hope that we can be part of that as well. I mean, we actually worked on a similar campaign in Sri Lanka, actually. When I say similar, it was working with, funny enough, like it was the Sri Lankan Red Cross Association, a small department within them so a subcategory. And they did a pretty big road campaign, actually, mainly built on litter, trying to educate the local tourists who are, traveling en masse in buses, but with very little regard for, for littering on the main highways, on the main roads, and then of course the destinations that they visited. And they worked on we were a very small part of that campaign, but they worked on a campaign really to try and educate the local tourism operators, the local bus operators in trying to clean up their act. And I hope we can. I mean, we've got some time to really think about something, but I hope we can work on something that maybe can can be part of that. It's a large part of what we do, what we're passionate about when we're visiting these destinations. I mean, perhaps we can now jump in a little bit to that rickshaw adventure. So just a little bit more of a background. I think this is how I actually came to know of you, was from that journey that you did, and you drove a rickshaw pretty much up and down, I believe, the Karakoram Highway from Islamabad all the way up to close to the Chinese border, right? And then back again.
Then I went from a different route, like I said, the Babusar Pass route. I didn't come back from the KKH because by the time when I got back, the Babusar Pass had opened up. So then I went over Babusar Pass down into Kaghan Valley, which is a sort of a parallel valley, runs parallel to the KKH, and then went down Kaghan Valley, and then I crossed another pass into Kashmir Valley and went up a valley called Neelam, which is really pretty. So basically, I actually traveled across the Himalayan mountain range and the Karakoram mountain range, covered about 3 different valleys, and it was a long journey. I broke it into half because after I was done with the Khunjara Pass, which is on the Chinese border, I brought the rickshaw back and I parked it in Hunza Valley, and then I went back after I think a month, and then did the rest of the journey. So yeah.
And what would be, so I like I said, I was keenly following. Well, it was mainly that some of the videos that you'd put out afterwards, and I guess during as well, just following your journey. What were the highlight? Not the highlights, but how was the rickshaw received? Like, along the way, like you're obviously, you came from Islamabad all the way. I'm assuming not very many people do that. If I'm not mistaken, you're probably the first person to have actually done that journey in a rickshaw.
Yeah.
So how was it received along the way? Like, what was the take? Just some of the highlights.
Yeah, it's interesting. Rickshaw is poor man's ride in Pakistan, right?
It is kind of all over, the countries that we operate in. So Sri Lanka, India, Cambodia has a little bit of a different relationship with the rickshaws. I can go down that route later, but it's the same in Sri Lanka. It's the same in India. It's poor man's ride for anybody. Working man. It's a working man's vehicle. Access.
Exactly. And so there's like a lot of people are biased because they think rickshaw is a noisy vehicle because also they think it emits a lot of, it has a lot of carbon carbon emission. See, the problem is in the olden times there was like 2-stroke engine rickshaws. They did actually pollute, and they were noisy, but now in Pakistan those rickshaws are banned. So now we have 4-stroke engine rickshaws, and the carbon emission is super low in these rickshaws, lower than your 600cc car. And they are not noisy at all. I mean, they are like even quieter than your basic 125 Honda bike or whatever, your motorbike, which are all over the place. So I actually feel, and I think, and actually know that this is, rickshaws are very environmentally friendly now.
100%.
So, yeah, completely. So rickshaws are banned in Islamabad. Like I said, they were banned way back when, but after that, the ban is still there. And I actually thought about it. And when I actually bought my rickshaw in Rawalpindi, and Rawalpindi, Islamabad, the twin cities, and I rode it into Islamabad, I thought I was gonna like stop on the way by on a police check post, because they're not allowed. So I rode the rickshaw into Islamabad, took it to my house, and I said, hey, I brought it here. Maybe I wasn't checked by the police. And then I deliberately, for the next few days, I drove the rickshaw around Islamabad. I was not stopped once by police, right? Even though I was breaking the law, but I didn't care about it because I thought it's a stupid law anyway. So when I then I headed out, for my adventure, my filming expedition on the rickshaw. So when I was going up on the rickshaw towards the mountains, after a while, when there are places where there are no rickshaws, people would be like really surprised. What is a rickshaw doing in the mountains? They would stop, they would look at it, and the rickshaw, I had like painted the rickshaw in the truck art, genre design that we have in Pakistan. So there were slogans about, responsible tourism. There were funny sort of couplets,
I actually want to show you
social issues in Pakistan. And
that magazine that we were talking about recently that you're also featured in, the one that was launched. They actually sent a little rickshaw. So
oh, sweet, man.
Yeah,
right on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
so it was all decorated, and it's really pretty, and I bought a new rickshaw, so it was all pretty and green, and so people were very surprised to see a rickshaw in their like mountain towns and villages, and they're like, "What the hell is this rickshaw doing here? We've never seen this one." So basically, my rickshaw was the first one that was, blazing a trail, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure people must have brought a rickshaw here or there too, but like local rickshaws, and then maybe the rickshaw broke down and they never had any other rickshaw. Because rickshaws are mostly found in the cities of Pakistan, not in the mountains. Yeah. But I didn't know that. Then I realized that up in Gilgit, there are some rickshaws flying around in Gilgit, which was really strange. But anyway, so when I went up all the way, I actually, along the Karakoram highway, man, it's about 800 kilometers from Islamabad to Gujjar Pass. So I stopped along different, I stopped in Mansehra in my hometown, and then I stopped in Bisham, many different places, Gilgit, Hunza, and all the way up to Gujjar Pass. So people were first of all surprised, and then we had created a hype around this thing on the social media. So a lot of people knew we were coming, and they were actually would stop us, and they're like, "Hey, we heard you were coming," and they were so happy. So a lot of people were excited and happy about this adventure, but then a lot of people in the mountains, in the northern areas, in the Gilgit-Baltistan province or region, they thought that I was polluting their territory by noise and carbon emission. And I had to explain it to them over and over again. Look, no, I'm not doing. And they're like, we don't want rickshaws in our hometowns. We don't want rickshaws in our mountains. They pollute, they're ugly, they're noisy. So like that whole bias was coming out because, they were like,
because of the reputation that the two-strokes already had in the cities, and the national ban and all of that.
Yeah, exactly, because of the previous bad reputation of the rickshaw. And I had to explain it to them on social media and in my interviews on TV and everything. But yeah, I hope some of them got it. But they were like, oh, you're setting a precedent, and next thing we know, there'll be rickshaws coming to the north, and other people will bring them. And I said, look, dude, it's not easy to bring a rickshaw on Karakoram highway. It is not like anybody's cup of tea. Ask me. I mean, while I was traveling on the Karakoram highway from Islamabad to all the way up to Gujjar Pass, it was a nightmare, especially in the Indus-Kohistan region, where, like I said, the Chinese are building the new road, and there were like potholes. They were not potholes; they were bomb craters, man. It's huge because the huge rocks fall. And they had to there were landslides and it was a nightmare. I mean, if you see those episodes, my rickshaw, people had to push it, shove it through mud and muck and landslides. And I had almost stumbled into the river Indus a couple of times. I almost died, man. The rickshaw just went tilted this way, and I almost went down in hundreds of feet down into the Indus. So it is not, it's not
Not
it's
for the
not, it's not,
faint-hearted.
no, it's not a walk in the park kind of a thing. So I said, look, even if people bring it, more power to them. So there were mixed emotions, but majority of the people thought it was a great adventure, and I think it was for a bigger cause of spreading the word about responsible tourism, about saving our valleys, nature, and environment. So for me, I was looking at things from that context. I mean, obviously, I was shooting a adventure travel show. I was spreading the word about responsible tourism. I was having a great time myself. And Pakistan Television, I had a contract with them halfway through the show, and I knew that I had a platform from where to air the show, and it was aired all over the country on a terrestrial channel. Huge. It received a lot of attention. It was very popular. People loved the show. So I had great fun, honestly.
And what were your, I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds like I can redirect anybody who's considering to join our, the first Pakistan, like our Pakistan Rickshaw Challenge adventure. I can redirect them to this conversation and say, hey,
They love it. They will
if you
love
want
it.
to taste, listen to this. What
Because
was your,
Mhm.
yeah?
No, I was just saying that the people who might join your adventure next year, I mean, all I can say to them is you will have the time of your life. I'm a Pakistani, so for me, okay, culture, mountains, I've seen it all, done it all. But for them, man, I mean, it will be going through the Karakoram highway, the high road to China, the fabled Silk Route, and the culture that changes every 20 kilometers, the languages, the hospitality of people, the adventure on the road. Uh, I mean, all the way up to Hunjara Pass, they will be completely blitzkrieged with culture and adventure.
That is exactly, I mean, you've just hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's why I'm so excited about it. Obviously, trying to explain to people what it's going to be like. Yeah, I mean, I think you've just summed it up perfectly.
Mhm.
We've actually had quite a lot of interest already for it, but
Sweet.
naturally, there's
Mhm.
probably a little bit of a split between exactly what you mentioned at the beginning of this chat about the perceptions that Pakistan has, especially in like Western Europe. And I'm talking mainstream, obviously, because
Exactly. Yeah.
anybody who really knows to scratch the surface, to look a little bit deeper, will know that it's perfectly fine. There, of course, there's always some areas that might have some issues, but in general,
Exactly. Let
it's
me tell you, Julian, during all this stuff that the shit was hitting the fan back in the time, even then, the stuff that was happening was like on the fringes. It was like northwestern side of Pakistan, border the border along the Afghanistan, and in even in peacetime, in normal times, people hardly went there. So it's completely on one side. Rest of the country, we had okay, occasional here and there bomb blasts, but like I said, that time is over. I mean, that's like people don't even remember that. So I mean, it's been almost like 7, 8, 9 years that it's total peace in
yeah.
Pakistan. There's nothing to be worried about, nothing. So if people still think that there are terrorists running around in Taliban, no, nothing of the sort. Nothing. We are back to our normal self. There's peace and security in the country. Tourism. There are like lots of foreign tourists all over the place. I mean, they're backpacking, they're climbing mountains, they're traveling. Uh, no worries, man. No worries at all.
Wow, that's so positive to hear. And I mean, that's a message that we're obviously going to be at the front of pushing for the next kind of 12 months, really.
Hmm.
Because we do want to, but it is that fine balance of course, there's going to be some pushback. Like you said, we're probably going to experience some sort of, why are there a bunch of tourists bringing a bunch of rickshaws up into the hills? There's always going to be that, there always is for the first one. And
Yeah, that's right. Hmm.
hopefully the message can kind of push through as an overwhelmingly positive one. What was so when you were doing your trip, had you planned the route out, or did you just kind of like go day by day? Like, were you going like 100 kilometers a day, less? Sometimes I've obviously looked at the route quite a lot, but Some days, just with rough roads and stuff. But had you planned out the whole route, or were you just going leg by leg and seeing where your rickshaw took you each day?
Well, I when I bought the rickshaw, I didn't even know how to drive it. Literally, it was a few days, man. I bought the rickshaw, I drove it around in Islamabad like for 2 days, got the hang of it, and then hit the road. So first 2 days were like, man, they were not scary, but on the roads, I mean, there are trucks and buses, and you're like, you are in a little puny little thing.
Yeah,
And then when the truck goes by, you're like, whoa, you get the wind, and but if you driving on the side of the road, there are no issues. And since I didn't know how to drive it, but I actually did plan a bit, but I didn't know like how long can I. Dude, you have to realize, the rickshaw seat is not comfortable. You have to be like hunched over like this.
Listen, I think I'm going to have a permanent disfigured back from my lifelong driving rickshaws just because of that issue. Yeah.
No, not at all. But so if you ride for longer times, you get tired. Your shoulders get tired. So I kind of when I rode the rickshaw from Islamabad to Mansehra, my hometown. Like I said, it's a 3-hour ride. Obviously, we were filming, and it took me a whole day because of obviously we stopped and we filmed, and we were not like going in one go. So that's about 125 kilometers from Islamabad to Mansehra. And like I said, we could have done it in 4 hours, but we did it in a whole day because obviously we were filming. So I kind of I knew that I can drive the rickshaw from Islamabad to Mansehra, from Mansehra to Bisham on the KKH. This is the main KKH.
Yeah.
If you don't take the shortcut through Babusar Pass. And then I knew that from Bisham I can drive it to Chilas, which was going to be some of the days were really long. Like I said, from Bisham to Chilas was like a nightmare, man. It was raining, and the road is, like I said, being built, and it was just crazy. And it was a 15-hour day. We started at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we reached Chilas at 6 p.m. So some days were long, and then from Chilas to Gilgit wasn't bad at all. And then after Chilas, the road is amazing, right? It's like motorway. Then there is like no worries, man. I was like taking rickshaw up to 80 kilometers per hour, like like really cruising down the metal road.
Yeah.
So but yeah, like I said, you can plan it. Your trip is going to be a bit different, obviously, with all the clients and maybe 14, 15 rickshaws, obviously a whole caravan. So it will be fun because you won't be pushed for like you have to reach a place. You can just plan an itinerary and enjoy the trip, see the culture, the scenery, the views, the mountains.
Yeah, well, as you know, like driving a rickshaw in these areas, what the beauty of it is, like, on average, you're going sub 40 kilometers an hour.
Exactly. Yeah.
It gives you the liberty to kind of just stop wherever you want. If you see something, an interesting, town or village or farm or shop or food stall or chai, whatever, you can just pull over, meet the people, have that amazing interaction that you get, firstly, because you get the welcoming like look of amazement and shock of someone that sees you in the rickshaw.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that gives an initial like icebreaker that just allows for that first friendly interaction normally, and then it just seems to be like a continuation of that the whole way.
And see, the slower you move through the country, the better you get the experience of the land and the people. And you're right. I mean, you can stop the rickshaw. Literally, you see something, zoop, you just pull it over, just get out, meet the nomads coming down the mountain valleys with their, household on their mules and, interesting costumes in their like herds of goats. These are like nomads who've been going up and down these valleys for thousands of years now. So you can interact with them, jump back into your rickshaw, and poof, move on. So I believe that I've ridden bicycles in the mountains, and that is also another great way of actually connecting with the nature around you and the people, because you're even slower than the rickshaw. So I think rickshaw is a great way to travel and get to know the country.
Yeah, I really well. We obviously think so. I mean, that's why I've got a rickshaw here in London, which always makes things really interesting. We have a lot, a large South Asian population here, and when I drive my rickshaw around London, it's just so well received from
I'm sure,
Indian
yeah.
communities, Pakistani communities, Bangladesh communities, Sri Lankan communities. It's just so, it's like a taste of home, like driving through London. So it's so well received. What do you think I know I've kind of briefly touched on it already, but the perception or reception of, I mean, just to give you a brief understanding, we probably will have, I'm estimating, like 15 rickshaws. On average, the teams will, if we base it on our past adventures and challenges, they really do come from all over the globe. So we'll have, some Europeans, some Brits, Australian, Kiwis, even Middle Eastern teams, some probably the odd one from Singapore, Malaysia, American, Canadian, like a real mix. What do you think the perception will be, or reception of a bunch of tourists, foreigners driving the rickshaw up that route that you did? What do you think it will be in general? I mean, I have my ideas, but just interesting to hear what you think.
You guys will cause a riot, man. No doubt about it. I mean, you will be talk of the town, talk of not only town, talk of the whole country. I think I believe that next year, when things are going back to normal, we need that kind of image for the country, and I believe that the government would be more than willing to help you. I'll be more than willing to help you. As an ambassador of rickshaws in Pakistan, I would love to be on the forefront. Like, hey, let's go.
Oh yeah,
like merry pranksters, man. And so we need that attention, man. I mean, to show the world that we are a normal country, fun loving, hospitable people, great adventure, beautiful mountains, we have everything. So you guys, with a diverse crew from all over the world, I think it would be a great idea. People will love it. You will be all over news. Obviously, we'll be shooting a documentary about the whole trip. I think it will be something phenomenal. I mean, I feel that international news channels like BBC and CNN and Discovery should pick up on this as well.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm hoping for. I mean, when we launched our first ever, so we did the first rickshaw rally in Sri Lanka in 2009, and you've got, like, that's when Sri Lanka, they had a extremely long conflict that ran through, from 70s, 80s, 90s, up, and it finally came to an end in 2009. So they were grappling with an image, certainly at the end of the war, when there was, it was quite a heavy ending. Sri Lanka was grappling with the image of, war-torn country. You couldn't pretty much go north of like half of the country. And we did, so I was there doing a recce in February 2009. I actually got caught up in the last so-called terrorist attack in Colombo. I was there at the time. They had flown a plane into one of the buildings near the army headquarters. And this was me doing the recce for, like, oh, well, can we, where can we go? What can we do? This was February 2009. And we launched, the war then officially ended, I think, in March or April 2009. And then we did the first rally with something like 80 tourists from all over in August.
Wow.
And it was on BBC. BBC took the headline. It got some great publicity. And that's the kind of messaging that we want to get out. It's a small event in the scheme of things. It's not, it's not a huge cricket event. the clout that it gets just because of the diversity that it brings together, the style of trip, covering such a long distance of the country, the regions, I'm really hoping that we can capture almost that same positive image to move forward. And yeah, we can get. I know that with your experience in making the documentary stuff, we'll get lots of that. But I'm hoping we can really build on that positive image.
Sure, man. Yeah. I'm looking forward to your trip next year, because I was hoping this year, but I think you made a right choice, because things are still not back to normal in the world,
Well, it was also more, it's we can travel, but what's the more of the hassle is getting people to convince, because of all these quarantine rules of like a lot of like what Western Europe have. It's still currently, I'm not sure if it's exactly illegal, but it's very difficult they make it, you need to have a very good reason, even for us as a citizen in the UK right now, to travel, which is ridiculous in my opinion, but that is the case. Obviously, they want to protect. Anyway, I don't want to go down that line. But the point is that it's so hard to travel, and then to come back, you've got to then quarantine for 2 weeks. So if you're a normal person that can afford a couple of nice holidays a year, if that, you just can't afford to take that time out of your life, especially if you're working. And that's been the biggest challenge, because convincing people that they'll be able to come and then not to have to worry about quarantine. And we just feel that next year, with things changing quite quickly, hopefully vaccination policies just improving globally, then it will be ready and easier to travel. So that's why we've done it. And it doesn't, like I told you, if we could potentially do it in, let's say, December, then great. But knowing the route that we're going, it's just not possible. Midwinter, we're talking 4,000 or 5,000 more. What's the highest on the highest passes? Over 5,000?
Yeah, I mean the Khunjra Pass, the Chinese border, Pakistan Chinese border, that's about 4,600 meters high. Yeah. I mean there is going to be a lot of snow, especially in the upper reaches. So yeah, summertime is better.
Yeah, I had kind of thinking ahead already. I had a consideration to do like a pre-winter trip just before like the heavy the heavy snow starts. But I would imagine that would have to be somewhere like September at the latest, right?
Yeah, October. Yeah.
So maybe something to work towards in the future. Tell me then, Wajahat, what are you working on at the moment? What are your like shorter term plans for 2021 or the rest of this year? What are you working on at the moment?
Ever since COVID started, I haven't been out. I haven't shot any. Obviously, no travel shows, nothing. Just regular work. So I mean, things are like really good in Pakistan now. I mean, the Corona thing has gone really down. We have crossed the 10 million mark in vaccination. So there's a lot of people do that. So things are improving considerably. So I was actually thinking of going into the mountains, man. Like in July, I want to go climb a mountain, do go for like a high altitude trek or something.
Yeah.
But in terms of filming and big expedition or something related to work, I have a couple of projects in mind. I want to do a railroad journey in Pakistan. The legacy of that the British left behind, and there. So many train journey shows have been done in India, but not a single train journey show has been done in Pakistan. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Actually, I was working on that project when the COVID hit, and so that took kind of a back burner. So a travel journey all over the country, showing old railway stations, steam engines,
Yeah.
narrow gauge tracks, and all that stuff. It's quite a lot of engineering marvels littered around Pakistan when it comes to railway lines and tunnels and everything.
What's the main
Uh,
network? Does the main network just connect like the big cities, Islamabad, Lahore?
no, I mean it connects the whole. It's a huge network which is from north to south and west to east, man. It's a huge network. A lot of lines have gone dry. Let's put it that way. A lot of lines have been destroyed. Railway stations been closed, but there's still like a lot of interesting stuff that can be covered. And another project that I'm working on that I'm thinking about is actually traveling with the Gujjar Nomads from the highest. We have Deosai, one of the highest plateaus in the world. It is like a Pamir of Pakistan. It
Mhm.
is around 4,300 meters, 400 meters high, and the Gujjar nomads basically, they travel up to these pastures.
In the
From
summer
the
months for
Yeah, they go up and then they come down. For the summers, they go up to the Deosai. So I just wanted to travel with them, on their horsebacks and their mules and their
yeah.
sheep,
No,
herds of sheep. And
nomads.
yeah, I mean, these are like nomads who, like I said, for thousands of years, man, they've been going up and down these routes,
Yeah.
crossing the Himalayas into the Karakorums, and going back to the plains of Punjab in the winters. There are many names, and similar nomads used to cross over from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and from the Tajikistan side and Kashmir side, and they have many names. They're called Gujars, Bakarwals, Kuchis, Pavindas. So it's a very fascinating culture that I feel is going to end sometime soon because of the way we are moving towards things in the world. The civilization is creeping up. The old trade routes are being closed by shopping plazas and fast food joints. And so I think that those ways, that way of life will be gone. So I would like to actually travel with these nomads and shoot a documentary, actually stay with them, walk with them all the way up through these beautiful mountains, through the Himalayas, all the way up to the Karakoram, to the Deosai region. So that's a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine in my head what that's like because I went up to last year, no, the year before, up into the Kashmir region in India, up into
Mhm.
Leh and Ladakh, and then I did a big motorbike trip up, and I think we must have been, as the crow flies, no more than 30 kilometers from the Pakistan border, a place called
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Tuk-tuk.
Mhm.
So right on the border, like the Indian Pakistani border, but like in between it, I don't even think there's a crossing there. It's just a huge mountain.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I have to say though, those towns, they did feel still very much untouched. It was great to see. It was great to see. Really was just people living like they probably have for centuries.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
But it was magical, and I mean, it was my first time in the Himalayas, and I remember thinking, I hadn't really thought too much about, I was just expecting, I've been to the Alps, I've been to mountains, I've climbed mountains, but I don't think anything really prepares you for the scale. I haven't been to Nepal, but to the scale of the Himalayas, really, like the size of these mountains, from valleys that are kind of a couple of thousand meters being overlooked by 8,000-meter peaks, is just it's just
Dude,
mind blowing.
wait till you come to Pakistan and look at the Karakoram Mountains. I mean, the scale is huge. I mean, Himalayan mountains are big. Karakoram Mountains are bigger, and like, it's like a drama of rock and ice. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, I really can't wait. Um, yeah, I was going to share some of your videos and stuff. I also wanted to personally thank you again for some of the you put together our little promotional video, which we kind of just shared a bit more recently. So, like, people, if people want to see some of that footage, and thank you very much again for that, because it was amazing, and even that short like little video that you put together of 30-40 seconds is a great little taster. Where else can people find like what you're doing? I know, what's your YouTube channel, or the best place to find you and to follow your adventures?
Well, if they want to look at my rickshaw ride, there's a Facebook page called Rickshaw Diary. They can go on that page. I have an official YouTube channel but to be honest, Julian, I'm not sort of like the kind of guy who puts videos all the time, and
Yeah.
so even the podcast show that I have, it's very irregular. It's called Under Discussion. So if people want to look at my adventures and travels and films, they can just type my full name, Wajahat Malik, official YouTube channel, and they'll see a lot of videos there. But obviously, I'm also on the Facebook. So.
And if people want to meet you, the best way to meet you is to come on our first Pakistan trip next year, and then they'll meet the man in person.
Yeah. I'll be leading the pack, so so yeah, it'll be great. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, man. Definitely. I mean, imagine 15 rickshaws, just going through the mountains in Pakistan, and the people in those rickshaws, and what I love is because I've seen in this all, but I love to see when a newbie, a newcomer comes to Pakistan, and when you look in, I actually start looking at the landscape and the culture and the people from their eyes, and that's really fascinating for me, because I can see the wonders in their eyes, and they're like, they're wide-eyed, and they're like, oh my God, look at this mountain, look at this, and that's really it excites me too. So.
It's one of the best parts of my job, actually, is seeing that, is taking people on like amazing experiences, first time experiences, that do become life-changing experiences. It's we provide the platform for whatever adventure they want to have, and then you give them a rickshaw, you put them in an amazing destination, like that does the work, but it is amazing to see what comes from that. And I mean, we get, even from just the trips that we've done in the past, we get messages all the time of, this was the best trip I've ever done. And I think the Pakistan trip will be, one of the best. And I'm pretty sure of that. So can't wait. It couldn't come soon enough. I got a message today from someone saying, "Oh, so I see you're doing it in June. Is that next week?" Can we book on it? I was like,
really, that's good.
I would really like to say it's next week, but
and Julian, I was thinking, like, when you guys are down here in Islamabad, like when I started my journey in the rickshaw, Pakistan Tourism Development Corporation, they gave me a great send off. Because I was promoting, tourism from a eco-friendly, tourism from that point of view. So I got a really great send off from in Rawalpindi, and it was great. So I'm hoping that we can actually have have the government should arrange a reception or a super send off. We can actually have a party and then leave.
I'm really hoping that we can do the same. I mean, what we did, we actually managed to get in Sri Lanka. We had like police convoy, army convoy. They closed off the roads in, like downtown Colombo, like along Gorface, which is like the main beach road in Colombo. We had an amazing parade, and that's actually what one of the the main BBC article picked up on. So yeah, it's a large part of what I am working on. And I hoped, I hope that you'll be part of that. So it's
no, I will. I have lots of friends in the tourism department in Pakistan. I know a lot of people, and I'm sure we can arrange a big send off, a parade. From Islamabad, there should be, a big parade, and then we head up into the mountains. I mean, that would be a great way to start the adventure.
Yeah, I can't wait. Great. Well, Wajahat, it's been really nice chatting to you. Thank you so much for taking your time to come on and chat. I will, we'll speak soon. And thank you very much.
No, thank you, Julian, for having me on your show. And I'm looking forward to your trip. And hope we have a great time, man. And people out there should look into it. It's gonna be one hell of an adventure.
Brilliant. I love that. All right,
Okay.
Wajahat. Thanks again.
Cheers. Ciao.
Cheers.
Bye bye.